Alright, well I've come out to one of my favourite places, the ridges overlooking Strath Creek Valley. I've been here dozens of times, as you well know if you've watched my channel for a while. And this is the very last time I'll be using my Canon RF 100-400. This is a lovely lens, but as much as I've waxed lyrical about this lens, and it is a brilliant lens, it really is. I have this plus the RF 70-200. And as you'll know, I've recently bought the RF 35 macro, which I also enjoy. But I'm trying very hard to consolidate my kit because I want to start walking more. And my bag is pretty bloody heavy with all these lenses in it. I've got the RF 14-35, the RF 50 1.8, which I really love, and I'd never get rid of that. The only way I would get rid of that is if I got the RF 50 1.2. But that's bloody heavy, so I probably won't get that, and I don't think the value is there. So what I've decided to do is sell this fella, the RF 100-400, the RF 70-200, which is difficult because that's my favourite lens. I love that lens, and I'm going to sell the 35 as well because I'm going to get the RF 100. In fact, I've already bought the RF 100-500. My favourite lens of all time is the EF 100-400. If you've followed me for a while, you'll know that. So I've decided to consolidate my kit down to simply the the RF 14-35, the RF 100-500, and the RF 50 1.8 as my fast prime. But right now, I'm going to use this lovely lens for the last time while I await the arrival of my 100-500. On these beautiful hills out here in the Strath Creek Valley. I'm going to do some handheld shots, see what I come up with. So, a little hand-holding exercise. And I came out here to have a nice afternoon out in the bush and to take some photos and have a chat to you, but ended up having quite the off-road adventure, as you would have seen from some of the clips leading into this part of the video, and it was quite the adventure. And the funny thing is, I've got lots of kit for remote travel, and some of those tracks are fairly gnarly, and I've got a satellite phone and some recovery gear and all that sort of stuff in case I need it. But I didn't think I'd be doing that kind of driving today, so I didn't bring my sat phone. That actually lives in the camper van, and I don't have much recovery gear with me. But in the Pajero, it was no trouble. Although I did make the mistake, because I've been using it so infrequently lately for off-road driving, I actually put it into four-wheel drive high range centre lock diff going up the gnarliest hill of the lot instead of low range first. But it just clawed its way up there without any trouble, without any fuss. It's a marvellous machine, that. Good old Pajero, tough as a nail. Been around forever. I've heard of people having those, racking up 800,000 Ks on them. So they're pretty damn reliable. But anyway, time to take some shots. Let's see what I come up with, eh? Alrighty. I generally don't like shooting in winter conditions, but the good thing about shooting in this kind of environment is when you've got rolling hills, and you've got fairly windy conditions and you've got cloud, then you get this beautiful dance of light across the hills, which is really, really appealing. I've always loved that. Right now I've got, the settings are, what do we got? 2/50th of a second. I've locked in the shutter speed so that I don't get any camera movement, even though I can go much lower with this lens with image stabilization, but I'm zooming out to 400mm a lot, so I'm down to 250th of a second, set it to f10, auto ISO, and just letting it do its thing. So f10 should let me get plenty in focus, because I'm not seeking to blur out any backgrounds. 250th helps against camera shake, and ISO, I don't care what the ISO is. I hardly ever do. Incidentally, if you're shooting with a long lens, and your shutter speed starts getting down a bit low, the way to take a shot and minimize camera shake is to take a breath, then breathe out, and just as you reach the bottom of your breath, then you press the button. And don't yank it, just give it a squeeze. And that way that minimizes camera shake. I love a lone tree. I always love a lone tree. Now I'm shooting at 3/20th of a second, so I don't really need to use that breathing technique. But if I did, this is what I'd do. I go like this. Just like that. God, it sounds so beautiful here. Geez, what did we do before zoom lenses were invented, eh? We got it so easy now, especially with these really wide-ranging zooms that go from standard all the way up to very long telephoto. We've really got it good these days. You know, somebody suggested a while ago, when I'm out shooting like this in the middle of the day, that I shouldn't be always using my tripod, and they're absolutely right. It's just such a habit, always, you know, slapping your camera on a tripod. But the reality is, if you're going to shoot in the middle of the day, and let's face it, a lot of us, that's the only time that we have available is to shoot in the middle of the day, then, you know, there's no point breaking out the tripod in most cases, unless, you know, you're trying to get movement in clouds or leaves or water, or, you know, you want really front to back sharpness and you're not doing focus bracketing or focus stacking. But in most other cases, you just don't need it. Oh, I love this play of light and shade. Love it. So nice. I love this minimalist look. You know, this is exactly the kind of thing that every busy corporate executive needs, is to just get out amongst nature like this and just enjoy being in amongst it. And the trouble is, if you're a really ambitious go-getter type of person like I've been all my life, it's very hard to justify doing the things that we know are good for us, like this, like just getting outside and enjoying nature. But if we bring a camera along, then that gives us a very legitimate excuse to do it. And we don't have to feel guilty about it. We don't have to feel like we're being unproductive and wasteful with our time. You know, time is our most precious resource. It's the one thing that is linear, that we can never get back. Every time you do a job for somebody, every time you get hired by somebody, every time you show up for work, you are literally selling your life, because we're all dying. I mean, we're dying right now. We don't move towards death. We are constantly dying until eventually we die. So our time is just so precious and valuable. And we really need to do this stuff. We really need to get out in a place like this and just be with our own thoughts and be with nature for a while. And I know it's difficult. It's difficult when you're an ambitious person, when you have a strong work ethic, when you've been working hard all your life. It's hard to justify it. But that's why this thing is so good. It gives you the reason, it gives you the excuse, it gives you permission to go out and do this. And you really should do it. You know, if I could get one message across to you, is life's so bloody short. You know, you really have to enjoy it. If you've read Bronnie Ware's book on the 5 regrets of the dying, you know, number one up there is, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. My dad said it to me too, you know, you work too hard, son, it's just not worth it. And, you know, I've always believed in working hard when I'm working. The trouble is not so much how hard, it's how much. Many of us work far too much. You know, when one of my colleagues died recently, you know, there was a somber mood amongst staff, and the CEO, you know, issued an email to all staff. And I thought to myself, you know, before he passed away, when he knew he was dying, did he ever think to himself that the praise and the accolades and the condolences that his family would receive and that we would all be privy to after he passed was worth the amount of time that he devoted to being in that office, on the phone, serving customers, you know, doing the right thing? Did he think it was worth it?